KUCA. This is the Bear 91.3 KUCA Conway. This is Christopher Cole and the Big Toe Sports Show coming up weekly on Fridays at 2. It's, let's see, 2:12, a little bit past time. But you know what? I thought it'd be nice to get the show starting with something by playing Michael Jackson's "Wanna Be Starting Something." I think that's going to be the new, I guess, intro to the show. Why not? Because at the show we like to be starting something. Anyway, let's talk about on the docket today. We've got some of the biggest news in sports, in particular the NBA trade deadline that passed last night. We have some very influential trades and some interesting opinions on those things, including the not trade of Rajon Rondo that we all thought was going to happen, and Danny Granger being traded to Philadelphia for Evan Turner and some additional cash, I believe. And we're going to talk about the Winter Olympics and what just happened about an hour ago in Sochi with the United States hockey team. And along with all of those things, we're just gonna see what's gonna happen at the end of the hour with UCA and in particular everything else that's going down. So we've got a full docket for us today, and we'll see what we can get in and see what we can talk about. So first, I think I'd like to introduce the topic of the Indiana Pacers and the Philadelphia 76ers trade that happened last night. The Indiana Pacers traded their longest tenured player, who was former All-Star Danny Granger, which is a fantastic player. A couple of years ago, he was an All-Star, as I said just a second ago. And the 76ers, who have just traded Spencer Hawes a few days ago, their starting center, seem to be trading away part of their franchise as well. At least the beginnings of it with Evan Turner, and they're trading it for Danny Granger's $14 million salary that will be non-existent at the end of this year. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for both teams. So first, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers and what that possibly means for them. I think many of us remember a few years ago when Danny Granger was by far the best player on the Indiana Pacers, especially that the year where the Heat won their first NBA Finals and they faced the Pacers in the semis of the Eastern Conference Finals, and how that Pacers team took them to Game 7, I believe it was. It was a closely contested game, and it probably was the hardest series that the Miami Heat had to work with during that season, because they went through I think it was the Bulls pretty quickly, and they went through who was the other team? The Thunder pretty quickly. They went through both these teams pretty quickly, pretty easily, and I think the most marquee matchup for the Heat was the Pacers, mostly because of the fact that Danny Granger was playing very well, and their big center, whose name Roy Hibbert, right off the top, I couldn't remember him off the top of my head. Roy Hibbert was playing well and eating up rebounds from Chris Bosh and just making it difficult for Miami to take hold of. I remember Danny Granger being the spearhead of that offense, and I remembered, for a long time wanting Granger to be, I liked Danny Granger for a long time. And I wanted him, and I kind of liked having him as the staple of the franchise. Of course, in the year since, he's got an injury, and he had an injury all of last year, and this year he's played a little bit. He's gotten about 8-point-something points per game. He's not scoring just off the charts, but the Pacers have put Paul George at his current position, and their starting lineup is pretty consistent. They've got Paul George, of course, Roy Hibbert, George Hill, and Lewis Stevenson, and et cetera, et cetera. They've pretty much got the system down, and that's why it was fine for them to let Granger go, although he's a massive talent that just is recovering from an injury. What they get out of the trade that's just happened recently is something really good for them. I like the trade because I think Evan Turner is a young guy that has a lot of talent, but he's been throwing up a lot of inconsistent shots. I think he's been throwing about I think he's been making about 48% of his shots, which is okay, but he also takes a ton of shots per game. And so we don't, the 76ers have kind of been having a hard time dealing with that, in addition with just they've just been having a hard time with their team overall. So I think they're getting ready for next year. But anyway, we're talking about the Pacers here. I think the Pacers are doing a really good job because they can develop him into somebody new. Danny Granger was, Paul George speaks about Danny Granger. And I think I actually have the quote here. Let me grab it really quickly. He says, Granger said, or Paul George posted on Twitter today, he said, on a serious note, upset day for me losing a big brother, and mentor hate to see him leave us. And that just kind of describes the relationship between Danny Granger and Paul George. And I have no doubt that, so that's unfortunate. You can see a lot of Danny Granger when you see Paul George play, but I wouldn't be surprised, if this time in 5 years or so, if Evan Turner looks exactly like Paul George does. And I can see that Paul George might just take that position of mentor and kind of like a big brother coach for Evan Turner, and develops him into the player that the Indiana Pacers could use pretty consistently. Because right now they don't need a kid that's just going to throw up a lot of shots. They just need somebody that's going to be able to make a shot. Somebody's just going to be able to be trustworthy with taking shots. So I think the Pacers get a really good deal out of this. In addition to that, they just get some excellent depth, which I always have felt like is a really, really good thing for the Indiana Pacers. So pretty proud of them for that trade. And also, now let's talk about the 76ers, who just kind of look, as I mentioned earlier, they're kind of just looking to dump Granger's salary somewhere else. They're gonna pay it for this year and then let everything go. And it seems like, with the addition of them losing Spencer Hawes, and it looks like they're just grabbing a contract they'll just let go at the end of next year, and they've started the full-on tank mode. Hopefully they'll get, hoping to get somebody really good in the next draft, or in the upcoming draft, whether it be Andrew Wiggins or any of those players. It just seems like that's what 76ers are going to do. And personally, I've never been a big guy for the idea of tanking in the draft. It just doesn't sit well with me. I've had, I'm a New Orleans Hornets and now the New Orleans Pelicans fan. They've been a team that consistently, year in and year out, probably should be tanking. They have no shot at any year really at really making a strong push in the Western Conference. They're playing in a division with San Antonio and Dallas and Houston and Memphis, all teams that have been who have recently acclaimed the power in the past little bit. And so they've kind of always been the bottom feeder of the conference. And so it's been, for them, it almost just seems like they should tank almost every year and take apart of big drafts. But, something in me just doesn't want them to do it. It's more fun to watch a team that's actually trying, and it's more fun to watch, big-name players, big players that are fun to watch. And although, Danny Granger is, of course, a big-name player, he's not somebody that you're just dying to watch. He's kind of a wannabe. He's an all-star that's not really a superstar. So if I was the 76ers, I don't know if I would have dropped all these players. I think I like Evan Turner enough that he could be developed. Of course, he's going to be, much more beneficial to the Pacers than he probably ever was for the 76ers. But I would keep on to him, and just wait for the draft to come along, because this draft is very deep and very good. I think a top 10 pick is like a top 5 pick. A top 10 pick from this year is like a top 5 pick from last year. So I think that you can just wait for somebody in the draft to come along and maybe pick up like a point guard or something that's going to replace Drew Holiday. Wait for Nerlens Noel to come to form. Let Spencer Hawes play. Let Evan Turner play. Maybe pick up a good point guard or shooting guard to go along with these guys, and let Turner and Noel and their pick this year. Let them play, let them grow together and become the team that they can be. That's what I would do if I was the 76ers. But of course, I'm not an NBA GM, and I'm just as excited about signing some big name guy, no matter how much money it costs. I don't have any skin in the deal. I don't have any money at all in the situation, and quite honestly, except for stories like this, the 76ers are pretty irrelevant to even the National Basketball Association news stories. They're hardly ever mentioned on ESPN, or if you're anything of a casual sports fan like I am, they're just not as prevalent in the sports scene. So I don't know. Maybe what I'm basically saying is that I'm not a good person to be a GM. But anyway, they're doing what they're doing, and we'll just let them do what they're going to keep on doing. Because apparently they know how to do something. So, with all that in mind, we're going to talk about the next story. Oh, you know what? Let's go to a break. I think it's time for I think you guys are already tired probably and ready for some nice music. So I'll turn on some music, and after the break, we'll talk about the decision to not trade Rajon Rondo, and I've got some pretty good opinions on that. So we'll just wait to see what happens. All right, here we go. Here's September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.